Hi everyone, this is Bill Jurgens, former athletic director at Florida Tech and former rowing coach, presently the Vice President for University Relations at Florida Tech, Florida Institute of Technology. Last week I talked about making a great team through leadership principles, and today I'm going to talk a little more about it, but I'm going to break it down into three areas. The area I'm going to talk to you about today is communication. Then next week I'm going to talk about relationships, and then finally about attitudes. So first I would like to say, since we did the first video on making a team great through leadership, I got some feedback, and one of the feedbacks was, should this be for the members of a team? A coach asked that question, and I would say, I think it's probably more for members of a team than it is for the coaches, because the way we're moving in society, in organizations, is that the leadership is coming from within the team. How many times have you heard a coach say, I didn't have team leadership this year, it's the reason we didn't do as well? Well, I'm saying is that ideally you should have at least 50% of your leadership coming from within the team, and some great teams, most of it does come within the teams. The only difference is in the coach being there and hearing what the team has to say and adding input as the team's moving forward. I'm not talking about at the beginning of the year. At the beginning of the year, you're doing a lot of coaching, or a lot of hands-on and close working. But as the year progresses, you're backing off and allowing the ownership of the team become more of the team members and less of you as the team leader, because it is a team, and we'll be discussing that in much detail shortly. Some of the materials that we use, like the presentation that we had last week, you can go to this website at the top, www.fit.edu/university-relations/, and all this material is available for you at no cost. Again, there's probably no greater satisfaction than helping people understand and sharing the experiences you've had over the years in dealing with leadership and dealing with developing strong teams. I would like to continue with the slide that I used last week, and that is the one-on-one communication. And there's 6 areas that I'll be talking about today: body language, structure your environment, motivate team members, being passionate, expectations, and the support, rather the importance of every team member. Now, the first item is body language. And on the body language side, you always see someone that's coming off the field, or the coach is yelling at them and they're looking down, or they're throwing their hands up. These are things that we'll be getting into a little more on expectations. These are things that aren't positive at all. You have to realize that the coach, yourself, you're all in it to improve and get better. I'm not saying every coach uses the right kind of language. I would think that to use the right kind of language, it would be predominantly encouraging. And we'll get into the encouragement side of it in a little while. But what I can say is that I've experienced it myself going to a practice, and after practice, one of the students came up to me and said, Bill, you're not your normal self. You don't seem, is there a problem? And I thought for a second. I was a little surprised at the question. And I said, I've got bronchitis and I haven't been feeling well. And of course, our practices took place at 5:30 in the morning. So at 5:30 in the morning on a winter day in January, you don't feel that great. I went home that night and I thought about it. I thought about what he had to say, you're not your normal self. And I said, that isn't in the benefit of the team. My job is to coach the team and help the team improve to the greatest of its abilities. And so I went back the next morning. Yes, I felt just as bad, but I had a lot more spirit and enthusiasm. I showed them that I recognized each of them. I talked with each of them. I asked them questions. And I just engaged in a real personal way. And I think that's what they expected. That young athlete that day affected my life forever, because no matter how bad I felt, I always brought the right attitude and enthusiasm to practice. Then there was a young man that I talked to who obviously wasn't happy with what the coach was saying. And I said to him, I just explained, you want to be receptive. You can't get down to the point where you're upset with what coaches are saying. You have to realize that they may not be saying it in the voice that you would like, but they're trying to help you. And he came away with a good perspective on how to move forward. And I think that's part of our job as coaches to do so. Then there was a situation where I was trying to talk to a coach, a football coach at a high school level. I tried to share with him some of these leadership principles. So I sat down with him in my office and I talked to him about one-on-one communication and how I thought it could be beneficial to him. And he said that he would try it. So at the end of the year, I went up to him and I said, hey Mike, did you use the one-on-one communication with your team members? And he said, you know, I wanted to do it, but it was on my list of things to do, but I didn't have time to do it. And so I said to him, I said, well, when you have time to have a winning season, then do the one-on-one communication. And he laughed. And the following year I got back with Mike and I said, did you use it? Did you use a one-on-one communication? He said, yes, I used it. I said, well, what was your season? What were the results of your season? He said, this year we were 11-1. So that one-on-one communication is so powerful that I put that into structured environment. In other words, structure your environment. I do not believe that you don't have time to do something. If a coach says, I don't have time to do the videos or sit down with them, or I don't have time to do this one-on-one communication, then I say, maybe you don't have time to be a coach, or maybe you don't have time to be a team member when you don't have time to work out. So structuring your environment, to me, is like time management, but it's basically saying, I'm prioritizing what is important, and I'm going to do what is important, and nothing is going to stand in my way in that effort. The other thing that I've heard a lot of, and I'm going down now to motivate team members, is I read a book just recently, and it was saying that it's not up to the HR, it's not up to the president or the person in charge of an organization to motivate people. And I thought about that for a while, and the more I thought about it, the crazier I thought it was. I think it's entirely up to our teams. In sporting teams, you see that. You see the support, the encouragement. We are motivating people. In fact, one of a former team member that I coached, he told me not long ago, he said, when I came to Florida Institute of Technology, I played a different sport. I wasn't a member of the rowing team, but I saw the enthusiasm and the support the team members had for one another. I saw the pride that they had for being a member of the team. And I saw the banners and the oars and all these things which were on display for their accomplishments. And so he was motivated by wanting to do well. And so his wanting to do well led this individual, and I'll mention his name, Tom Bohr, to be recognized as the top rower in the United States and to have been on 2 different Olympic teams and win silver medals. So people, I believe, are striving to be in the environment to do well. It's up to us to create an environment that will allow them to do well and to put them into situations that they can do well. And if you told me that I couldn't motivate someone, or I couldn't sit down one-on-one and talk to that person about their goals and how we can get there and what I see as the end result, I would think, well, that person probably doesn't want to be on the team, or probably doesn't want to work hard on the team. Because I think that is what we do. We work as a team, we motivate one another, team members motivating, coaches helping with that, coaches making sure that what is being talked about is appropriate and will have beneficial results for the team. So motivation and team members, that's what we do, and that's what we do really well. And I think one reason we do it so well is that we have an advanced degree of relationships. Our level of relationships are very high on team members. You see it on the SEALs, you see it on the Thunderbirds, on those teams that require a lot of precision. You see advanced relationships, and that's why the great teams have that. The next item has to do with being passionate. And I'd like to tell you a story of a coach who contacted me. This coach had coached for 30 years, and the coach was having some difficulty with his team. It wasn't advancing. It wasn't like it should be. And so I thought about it a little bit, and I thought, well, here's somebody that knows as much as I know about the skills and the technical aspects. I think it's probably the mindset that should be addressed. So I mentioned to him, I said, when you go to practice, you're excited about being there. You talk to the individuals, you share what your goals are, you do the one-on-ones, you talk about what their overall expectations are, you tell them what they can do and what you're trying, you talk to them about the new methods that you're using for how you're coaching and how you're improving certain areas of your sport. And he did. We talked about a lot of different areas, but I knew that the main thing was the enthusiasm and the support and the caring. I don't believe that you can be a good coach unless you care about everyone. I think a lot of that has been recognized by coaches over the year. Coaches get in conflicts with people. Fortunate for me, I was also a teacher, and I got certified in teaching and taught 2 years in the public schools. And I realized the approach was, I'm going to care about everyone in the class. In fact, I said, I'm going to love everyone on the team. And so when I started doing this as a coach, I felt that when someone came up to me, I truly cared for that individual. And there's a lot they could do that may try to change that, but it wouldn't. That didn't mean that I accepted certain levels of ridicule, but I did care about everyone on the team, and that made it much, much easier. And if you're not passionate, I can see saying to someone, well, let's go out there and let's beat this team. As opposed to, you know why we've trained hard, you know what our goal is, and you know we're going to achieve that goal, and each one of you is important to that success. Motivation's so easy. I do believe that it is the responsibility for each of us to encourage and motivate. And I see this. It's a common element among people that have been on team to encourage and support one another. And I think that's a great trend. The next area has to do with expectations. And I think expectations are very important. I see that coaches that have strong expectations, I mean, you expect to achieve this level of skill in an individual. And that coach will not give in to that. The coach will not accept a level less than what he or she desires. So you have a relentless expectation to achieve your expectation of that individual. And you let them know that, and they know that, and you work with them to get to that level, and they will get to that level. But great coaches have high expectations, and they will not give in to not achieving those levels of expectations. I would say also that much too often we as coaches don't let the team members know the level of expectations. We need to let them know that this isn't expected. When I see someone throwing their hands up when they're leaving the field, I think they're just saying that was wrong for you to take me out. And it's a coaching, in this case, it's a coach's decision. You want to be supportive of the coach's decision. The right way to do it is you go and talk to the coach and one-on-one, and you talk. But the coach determines your playing time. The coach determines whether you're on the team or you receive a scholarship, and it's set up that way. Administrators, athletic directors don't make those decisions, only the coaches. And so there's a good reason to make sure that you as a student understand all the expectations that the coach has of you. But I also think that a great coach would also set up the opportunity to determine what the student's expectations of him or her is. In other words, I would want someone to say, this is what I want. I wouldn't want them to call me out in a group setting, but I would want to have them sit down and say, this is what I expect from you as a coach, and we can talk about it. And these rich conversations is what allows people to get aligned and to come together and work together. One of the great times with one of my teams is that we always strive to do well, to win what we call the Dadville Regatta in Philadelphia. And we said we're going to win it this year. And not everyone really believed that. But I knew that we were going to win it when one day I was driving down to the boathouse and I looked over and there was my varsity 8. They had met together on a Sunday and they were going for a long, long run together. And then I knew they had all taken ownership in the success of that team. And I knew that we were going to win. And we did. Fortunately, we did. So expectations go both ways, and expectations, it's very critical that you understand what the expectations are of your team members and what the expectations are of your coach. The importance of every team member. And this topic right here is everyone important on the team, or should there be degrees of importance? For instance, if you have the starting lineup, the starting team, whether it's basketball or whatever sport, should they be given more time, more attention than, say, the second team? There's usually a second team that competes against the first team, and there's some people that go back and forth. But I found as an athletics director that some coaches believe that most of the attention should be towards the starting lineup, and they gave them a lot of attention. And I totally disagreed with that, and I talked to the coaches about how do you develop a team when you're spending all your time with a subgroup of the team. You have to equally, in this team that you have, work with all the members. You work with the least talented and the most talented, but the goal that you have is to help everyone become better, help everyone to become the best they can be. So I called Pat Williams, who's a former GM of the 76ers and works with the Orlando Magic, VP in that organization, and has written many sports books, and I asked him about it. I said, what do you think? You think that a coach should be predominantly working with the starting lineup? And he said, absolutely not. The coach should be actually spending more times with the ones that need more development, spending more times with the other individuals, because they're the ones you're developing for the future, and they're the ones you're developing to fill in for someone if they get injured or not able to play. So I shared this with the coach. It just made common sense to me. If you want to win, and winning's important, then maybe you should spend a lot of time just with the one team. But if you want a great team that has good dynamics, that's supportive of one another, that's all in, then you should be giving everyone on the team an opportunity and making sure that you're working closely with them. So the importance of every member of the team is critical, and the person that has the least, all you ask of them, there's only one thing you ask of them, is that they become the best they can be, and they're all in. Everyone on the team's all in. People that aren't all in, they'll let you know, and what I found is they end up leaving before you would ever remove them from the team, because they know what the expectations are. They see everyone else, And it's good to have an understanding. Again, it's good for the members of the team, not just the coaches, to understand what's expected of them. And the result will be a strong team that will always be supportive of one another, whether they win or they lose, but they will be more likely to be overachievers than just achievers. So thank you so much for the time. It was a little shorter than we've done previously. I would like to say that we'll be putting this on this website right here. And our next, as I said earlier, our next presentation next week will be focused on relationships. Very powerful. In fact, next week I hope to bring in a video that sort of shows it and explains it a little better with the team performing at a very high level. And also, there's other documents on this website that are available to you. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. My website isn't on this page, but it will definitely be on my website that refers to this particular link right here. Thanks again, and good luck with your team formations. Thank you.